السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. لعلها المفاوضة الأنجح والمنقذة لما بات يعرف برئة العالم الموجودة في حديقة ياسوني في منطقة الأمازون في الإكوادور، مع إيفون عبد الباقي الدبلوماسية والسياسية والناشطة الإنسانية والبيئية وسفيرة اليونيسكو للنوايا الحسنة، وقبل كل شيء هي الفنانة والرسامة. ننطلق في رحلة مرتكزاتها المحبة والسلام والإنسان من الداخل. معكم زينب صفار، تابعونا. لعل تجار الحروب لم يسأموا من قتلنا، وها هم تجار النفط يسعون على الدوام لخنقنا، وذلك بالقضاء على رئتي العالم الموجودتين في حديقة ياسوني الوطنية التي تمتد على مدى 1,000,000 هكتار من الأراضي الواقعة شمال شرق الإكوادور، حيث نقطة التقاء سفوح جبال الانديز وغابات الأمازون. هذه المساحة تعج ب300 نوع من الأشجار في كل هكتار، وهي ملاذ للسمك والزواحف والطيور والثروة الحيوانية والنباتية المتنوعة والنادرة الوجود، ما دفع باليونيسكو أن تسمي هذه البقعة الخضراء محمية المحيط الحيوية عام 1989. كما أن الياسوني هي موطن للوراني، أي الشعوب الأصلية في الأمريكيتين، وكذلك لكميات كبيرة من النفط. شيئا فشيئا هذه الشعوب الأصلية يجري دفعها وإبعادها عن أراضي أجدادها بسبب النفط وتجاره، واستمر الأمر حتى تم إيقاف مشروع دعم عالمي للحفاظ على تلك المحمية وشعبها وثرواتها الطبيعية، وكان إطلاق النار على المفهوم الإكوادوري سوماك كاواسي الذي خط في دستور البلاد، والذي يعني أن تحيا بانسجام مع البيئة وشعبها الأصلي. إيفون عبد الباقي سفيرة اليونيسكو للنوايا الحسنة والسلام، وسفيرة الإكوادور السابقة في واشنطن، والرئيسة السابقة للبرلمان الانديزي، والفنانة التشكيلية المنحدرة من أصول لبنانية، والوزيرة المكلفة بمبادرة الياسوني، تحدثنا من الداخل عن الفن والسياسة والبيئة ومبادرة الياسوني والجهود المبذولة لحمايتها، وعن التنمية المستدامة وجدارة المرأة في السياسة والمفاوضات وإيجاد الحلول ومواجهة التحديات. Goodwill Ambassador of UNESCO for the Dialogue of Civilizations and former Minister of Foreign Trade, Industry, Regional Integration, Fisheries and Competitiveness in Ecuador, and former President of the Andean Parliament, Mrs. Yvonne Abdel Baqi. Welcome to Min al-Dakhil from the inside, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Zainab. It's a pleasure.
It's our pleasure, and it's a great honor to have you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Your Excellency, or allow me to call you Yvonne.
Yvonne, please.
Yes.
I don't like titles very much.
Sure. You don't need the titles. They need you. You are a prominent diplomat, politician, humanist, peace negotiator, but above all, you are an artist and a world-renowned professional painter whose works have been exhibited in various museums across the globe, whether in Europe, in the Middle East, and in the Americas. What do you promote through your art, ma'am?
I think, Zainab, really, I think art is in every one of us. I believe that art is a universal language for peace, for love, whether it's painting or music or dancing or all kinds of arts or poetry. They are all related because it talks to the heart. And when I started, of course, I've been doing, since I was very young, music was part of my life. But
music and ballet.
Yeah, exactly. I used to make ballet and classical music. And when I started painting, it was because of the war in Lebanon. When I came to Lebanon, my children were born here, and the music for my children to sleep were bombs. They didn't see anything in Lebanon except bombs. It was during the
Civil War.
So I couldn't talk and I couldn't express myself because as a woman at that time, I was not allowed to speak in the political arena. So I started painting. And my art was very political. but I used always women as a symbol of love, unconditional love and peace. So for me, this was a very special part, and I think art is really the most eloquent silent language.
Right. Now, ma'am, you got involved in the arts, as you said, since an early age, particularly at the age of 3. And
That's
you
right.
you went all the way through the ballet and other kinds of arts. Then you became a painter, and in 1990 you moved to the United States of America and became the artist in residence at Harvard University. While in Harvard, you created a foundation under the title of Arts for Politics, and at the same time you've started the Beyond Boundaries Foundation. What are both foundations dedicated for, and what have you achieved through them? Do they still work? Are they still working on certain issues related to whatever their goals are?
When I went to Harvard and they invited me to be the artist in residence, I thought the purpose of doing art is always to unite people. And especially for my part, uniting East and West was something that I cared very much about, to know what we are.
Because you carry both.
Both. I'm from Ecuador, from Latin America, I'm from the West, and I'm also from Lebanon. I'm an Arab also. So for me, this was something of bridging two bridges. But also, because of what was going on in the world, I thought that to create a foundation, the Arts for Politics for Peace Foundation, it was very important, and it was the right moment. We started doing exhibits that were mostly with two countries that were in war. And that's what's part of what we were doing. But we will not do just the arts, in all the visual and the poetry and the dancing and even the gastronomic, the food, but we will bring two political figures to see how art unites. And how they should be using more of the artists to create peace. So that was the purpose mostly of that foundation, the Arts for Peace. The other foundation, Beyond Boundaries, it was mostly to Ecuador, because when I was doing the Ecuador-Peru peace, because we have a war between Ecuador and Peru also. The first one was the Israeli-Palestinians. We did the arts exhibit for both.
But allow me to interrupt you here, ma'am. The arts, you try to have a message through the art, which is to bring two opposing sides or fighting sides together to understand through the arts. But the arts, in the sense, it wasn't enough to bring about, whatever you aspired for, because we know that those two sides, the meaning of animosity is different from, for example, how you understood perhaps the animosity that was between Peru and Ecuador, two countries, two peoples.
The same religion, the same language, the same.
It's not the issue about religion, but it's the Israeli issue. Perhaps it's different because those people came from other parts of the globe under, a racist or apartheid regime. They created something and they occupied a land that does not belong to them.
It's true.
However you try to bring about peace through art, they won't appreciate that.
But with all that, I remember at that time when we did it, there were difficulties because they didn't want to have the art. For example, the Palestinian artist had put the map of Palestine artistically. When Israeli was there, he said, no, I will not exhibit if the Palestinian map of it's there. So I said, okay, we'll put the exhibition down because we have to keep, this is an art, we cannot accept it.
Now allow us to go back to Beyond Boundaries Foundation. We're talking about this.
Yes, the Beyond Boundaries Foundation started exactly when we did the exhibition of Ecuador, because I wanted always to bring groups of artists that are not, they haven't presented before. We brought the Afro-Ecuadorian musicians. They have an amazing art, the dancing, the marimba, esmeraldeña, the drums, but also they have poetry, the oral poetry. The oral poetry of the African Ecuadorian from Esmeraldas is an amazing way of presenting. So when they came to Ecuador, there was one of the poets that was presenting them who used to write about this oral poetry. And she said, and they are losing it because of a disease that we don't know what it is, they are losing their sight. So they didn't know that we had river blindness in Ecuador, in the Esmeralda region. So there were some doctors at Harvard and they told me, Yvonne, this is river blindness, onchocercosis. So maybe we should do something there. And that's why we took the doctors from Harvard and we went to Ecuador, to Esmeraldas. It was so difficult to get there, but once we get there, we saw that it was beyond just the onchocercosis, the poverty, the diseases and all that.
The tuberculosis and the
diabetes and all. So that's why we created the Beyond Boundaries Foundation, and it was eradicated in a few years.
Is it still operating? Is it still up to the standards?
It's diverted because we don't have more. We have no more onchocercosis and river blindness. We still have diabetes, so it's concentrated much more on tuberculosis and diabetes than in. I'm not involved anymore. I used to be involved in it until I became in politics.
It was only in Ecuador or other parts of Latin America?
No, it was in Ecuador, in the area where it happened, but now it went to all over Ecuador, and I think it's going beyond Ecuador, but as I understood the beginning, it was mostly in Ecuador when I was there.
Right. Now, ma'am, you said something very important, is that we as women can do a lot to change the course of things, and this is what you base all what you do on this specific issue. How do you see this today, especially with all the injustice and the heavy traumatizing burdens and, you know, all the crimes committed, and always the victim is the woman?
That's a very amazing question, Zainab, and difficult one, because we have to realize that, take the mother. Do you think a mother would accept their son to be what he is? And we are the ones that are bringing up men and children. So I think that's why we have to change the way we are educating our children.
Right.
I think it's important for the mother to educate the children equally. First, girls and boys should be educated in the same way. Not telling the boy you have to be strong, don't show the emotions, you have to provide and you have to do that and be strong. And the girl, you teach her in a different way. First of all, education is very important. You have to educate them equally, education-wise. But also the way we bring them up, to see that they have to work together in equality. So when you create this kind of boys, I will say, that are pushed to be hard and strong and this, because this is the role of men. And the things that happen are what we are seeing mostly now. That this is what is creating this kind of machismo, if you want to call it, that we have it in Latin America and we have it in the Arab world. So this is what is creating this kind of machismo. But let's go beyond that, Always is the mother that is bringing up this generation.
Sure.
So the mother has to be educated to be able to educate in a different way. And this is something that's very important. I think we have been doing it in Latin America and it's going much better than.
By education, you mean here that she shouldn't be illiterate?
She should be educated, literally, but also culturally. We have to change the way,
which is also
we are
very
educating
important.
The cultural part of why is it that there is this division. Because if we continue this way, we are creating a culture, what is happening now, because you asked me what's going on now, how can we solve?
Because we are suffering here.
First of all, when there is no education, there is no opportunities, and there's difficulties and all these wars, and the divisions that we are creating, and the more poverty, and the rich are getting richer, and the poor are getting poorer, we are creating a generation of people that don't have anything to lose. And when you don't have anything to lose, you become a bomb. You become a delinquent, you become a criminal, so this is what we have to start seeing beyond what's going on just now, what's going to happen from now until 10 or 20 years, if we continue doing what we're doing still now.
Right, Your Excellency, allow us to stop now for a short break, and then afterwards we're going to focus more on a very important project that you were responsible for, which is the الياسوني initiative. But after the break, إذا فاصل قصير ونعود، لا تذهبوا بعيدا. إيفون عبد الباقي التي كانت كبيرة المفاوضين والمبعوثة الرئاسية لمبادرة الياسوني ITT في عام 2007 والتي طرحت على الطاولة من قبل رئيس الإكوادور رافائيل كوريا، تحدثنا أكثر عن تلك المبادرة وتصف حديقة الياسوني والتي أنشئت عام 1979 وتحدثنا عن زيارتها لها.
It's the most biodiverse place in the world, the Yasuni National Park of Ecuador. It's in the Amazon of Ecuador. It's the size of Lebanon, 10,000 square kilometers, 10,500 square kilometers. But it has, in 1 kilometer of the Yasuni, has more biodiversity in flora and fauna than the United States and Canada together, just to give you an idea of what a unique place it is.
Yes.
The problem with this place is that it has oil underground.
Yes, it has. It
20% and maybe now we know that it's more than 20, it's maybe 30 or 40%.
It's around 846 million barrels.
It was.
Yeah,
now we found out that it's double that.
Double that
under the ground. That's why we had to stop it. But anyway, the idea that was presented by President Correa to the world, it was a very modern avant-garde idea. It's prevention. Because according to Kyoto, according to what they are presenting, it's we give you money if you do reforestation, right? Reforest. So cut the trees
to deforest,
make forestation again, and we give you the money. What we were saying is prevention. We don't want to cut the trees. We want to be compensated for half of what we will get if we take the oil out, but we don't want to take the oil out. We want to keep it underground, and we want to be compensated. This is, they call it in Spanish is emisiones netas evitadas, not avoided emissions. Avoided emissions. So it means that we avoid the CO2 to the atmosphere, but not taking the oils, not cutting the trees, and we'll be compensated by half of what we'll get if we take the oil.
Right.
It was a unique presentation of idea, and it was very well received, but it was sad that we couldn't continue it. It was very successful in different countries, mostly the European countries were accepting it, but those countries that didn't sign the Kyoto Agreement were not for it yet, because it was too before its time. Now we are seeing that if it had been later, maybe now with the agreement of Paris, the COP21, they are just talking more about it.
About the climate. They made a climate summit, which is very important. They are underscoring this issue, and you had it in Ecuador.
We had it, and it was unique, and it was, as I'm saying, it's a pity that we couldn't continue it because the support was not enough. The people in the world, yes, we had the support of the people, especially the young generation, everywhere. But some of the countries, you know what they were saying? They were saying it will be a precedent that will be followed by others.
As you said, this is a very unique project. I mean, what other country would give up its oil wealth and leave it in the ground and, you know, go on supporting the environment, which is also very important. What challenges, Yvonne, have you faced in this sense, particularly that you were in charge of all this project?
You know, this is what you mentioned, is exactly that. What country will do that? Ecuador, imagine a country that is a developing country, that we need the oil because it's our first source of income. We need it for education, for health, for infrastructure, for so many things, you name it. And still we wanted to give up that in order to keep the environment, because in the Constitution of Ecuador, 2008, it's the only country that gives priority to Mother Earth. That's the first chapter of the Constitution, priority to Mother Earth, to keep the Pachamama, we call it Pachamama. The challenge that we faced is that countries that they didn't want to do it, it's because they were safe. For example, why oil contaminates? Especially the Arab countries. They were not agreeing to that. Countries like the United States that didn't sign the Kyoto Agreement.
They didn't sign the Kyoto
That's
Protocol.
what I'm saying. Obama now he put forward that they have to do it. But at that time, it was still the dilemma of why. It means that if we do this with you, other countries say we want to do the same and we want to be compensated for not taking the oil. But mostly it was because they don't want to have it as that oil contaminates. This was something that now it's completely different. If we had maybe waited another 2 years, it would have been different. But it was in 2013 that we started.
August 2013, President Correa seized the Yasuni ITT initiative and began opening up the park to oil extraction. Today, what is the status quo there?
You know, they are taking it, but they are doing it in a very conscientious way, which I'm really very pleased to hear that they are doing it in the way it should be done with the latest technologies, with a lot of conservation. The Yasuni will never die. It's always be there. You are invited to come and visit the
Hopefully.
Yasuni. It's a unique place in the world. They are doing it in a very, as I said, unique way that it's the latest technologies that will not affect the biodiversity that is in the park.
Are you still in the process of raising funds in order to help on, or you خلاص the project is stopped?
The project was stopped.
Yes.
So what we're doing is creating awareness that the place is going to be staying and that it's visitors for tourism. But what we're doing, which the government is doing now, which is very good, is that the biodiversity that's over the ground, we have the most biodiverse, as I said, in flora and fauna. So for medicines, imagine that they discovered a fungus in the Yasuni, unique in the world, and it was Yale University.
It has
that
lots
discovered.
of unique stuff, flora and fauna.
Exactly. There's only just one fungus dissolves the plastic. Could you imagine what they discovered in this place, part of the world, that they discovered this fungus
Yes.
that dissolves the plastic? This is one of the thousands of medicines that come out from there, that it's good for any kind of diseases. If you're talking about cancer or all the diseases, there are medicines that are unique there. So we are having it's a university, but it's scientific university that are going to do the biotechnology.
Can we say now that Yasuni is in the clutches of oil companies?
No.
Did it fall in that?
No. We are getting the right people to do it, and it's the Ecuadorian government that is taking care of it, and we're bringing, as I said, the technologies for doing it in the right way. Instead of opening different places to take
Roads,
the oil out,
yes.
it will be done in one place and opens. It's a technology that is being done now. Newly, and then they will take the oil out and they will not pass it except from outside, from the river, take it to a place. Instead of creating roads, there are no roads. You know what is spoils mostly is the roads.
I would appreciate if you describe to us your journey there at to the Yasuni. Yes, when you first started.
Oh my God, when I
the
first
experience
went there,
is just exhilarating.
It is unique, you know. Ecuador has unique places. 20 to 30% of Ecuador's it's protected areas. We have the Galapagos Islands that are unique in the world, where Darwin did his theory of evolution. But the Amazon is unique because when you go there, you feel that you are near God. You feel that you believe in God. You believe in creation. It's like art. The most silent, eloquent language is when you are there and you listen
to the music of nature.
The music of nature. I remember the first day I went. The first trip I went, before I was appointed, the president asked me, I mean, my son told me, don't accept before you visit first the place. And I went with my son, and I went with Lenín Moreno,
yes,
with us and his
wife.
The
presidential candidate.
And who is the candidate. And we went, and I remember it's difficult together. You have to go by plane first, and by helicopter, and then by canoe for 4 hours, because even the motor is not accepted because it spoils the fragile atmosphere. So it was dark. But we were going in, and the lights of the luciérnagas, the light of the animals that are there that give the light, the moon was there. And then we arrived to this amazing lake, which is variety. And I remember my son put the recording machine at the night. The next day, when we woke up, he put this music, and I said, "What is this classical music?" He told me, "Mommy, this is the music of the Yasuni." So it is just an amazing, unique place, and just visit.
Hopefully. Now, in the forthcoming elections in February 2017, where are we going to see Yvonne Abdelbaki?
You know, that's something that I live the moment intensely.
Yes.
I like the process more than the end result. I'm going to be helping Lenin for sure. He's a great friend, he and his family, and I'm sure he's going to be a fantastic president. But for me, it's more the process of doing that
to go through the process more than the outcome. Now, again, Mrs. Yvonne Abdelbaki, Goodwill Ambassador of UNESCO for the Dialogue of Civilizations and former Minister of Foreign Trade, Industry, Regional Integration. Fisheries and Competitiveness in Ecuador, and also the former president of the Andean Parliament. Many thanks indeed for joining us. It was a great pleasure to have you.
My pleasure, Zeyna.
You're most welcome. إذا لقاء جديد في الأسبوع المقبل مع ضيف جديد وقضية جديدة ودائما من الداخل. المزيد من التواصل بريدنا theinside@almayadeen.net وصفحتنا على الفيسبوك من الداخل، من كل فريق عمل من الداخل من كل الميادين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.